Hello and welcome to another episode of Sacred Pause, the Self Healers Podcast. I am so excited for my guest today. She is a 3-time stage 4 cancer survivor. She's a blogger, a speaker, and she has an upcoming book coming out all about her
Mhm.
healing journey, all about her special dog, and we will get involved and talk about all of that. But without further ado, please welcome our guest, Caroline Rose, to Sacred Pause. Thank you so much for joining
Oh,
us.
hi, Kelsey. I'm so happy to be here.
Thank you. And I haven't known you for long, but I've
Mhm.
done some background research on you, and you really represent just inspiration, hope, and courage. So I can't wait to get to know you better.
Well, I appreciate that. That means everything because that is why I'm here. That's why I do what I do. I
Mhm.
always say if I can touch one life or just give one person a little bit of something to cling on to, that's what it is. Because I think,
Mhm.
at the end of the day, we all have struggle. And because what I've come to realize is, being human is struggle. We have it. We all have it. And it looks so different for everybody. We have some people have depression or financial issues. They go through divorce, they lose loved ones. I mean, the list is endless. And we've all
Yeah.
experienced at least something that has
Yeah.
rocked us. And I think it's beautiful that our stories are so different. But when we really dig deep and we get into that honest conversation, there's just that bond in that struggle that we all have and we all feel. And I think it's important for us to talk about it and to get strength from one another.
Totally. Thank you for mentioning that. So,
Mhm,
because yeah, I always say all we know for sure is that we're gonna like
mhm,
lose our loved ones, lose our animals, lose our
mhm.
family. So why
Sure.
not just have podcasts like this and have real
Mhm,
conversations like this that'll truly help people. Like just being
mhm,
vulnerable and open is so helpful. So thank you
mhm,
for all the work you do. And I
thank
would
you.
love to just begin with your life before you were diagnosed with cancer, and then
Mhm.
just a little bit about your healing process and your journey and all you attribute to it.
Yeah. It's still a wild story all these years later. Every time I think back to the day I was diagnosed, it's just this feeling of like, how did that happen? And I
Yeah.
was 27 and I was in the very best shape of my life. I mean, I was a big marathon runner. I had just done the Boston Marathon and New York Marathon and LA Triathlon. Like I was the definition of type A. I loved goals and achieving them and just kind of kept taking it up a notch.
Yeah.
And so then I decided that I wanted to train to climb Mount Kilimanjaro in Africa. So I'd really started, working out more with weights because I had the endurance, but, I was going to climb with my brother and he had more experience. And he's like, Caroline, you are not going to make it up that mountain. You've got to have some muscle to you. So I had started working out with this heavy weighted vest and going up and down this long outdoor staircase in Santa Monica, California is where we lived at the time.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
Yes, and, it's like
I'm
a
aware
type
of
A
those.
heaven, it's like all the type A people are just running up and down these stairs, and I'm like, "Well, look at
100%.
me, I've got a big weighted vest on," and it's just and that's kind of what my life was. That was my mindset, that was my mentality. It was, "Do not stop, do not look around." I was in medical school. It was just everything was more, faster, harder. And
Yeah.
I noticed, and I remember so well looking back, that during that training with this weighted vest, I really, really bulked up quickly. And I looked in the mirror and I saw the muscle in my neck. And I'd put deodorant on and I'd feel the muscle under my arms. And I thought,
Holy
well,
moly.
that is impressive. And a few weeks later, I did the blood work that you needed to do before you could do the vaccinations to go to Africa. And the blood work came back just with red flags all over the place, which they asked me to repeat it, which then, 24 hours later led to them removing a lymph node and diagnosing me with non Hodgkin's lymphoma, which turns out the doctor that diagnosed me, those were not muscles in my neck or under my arms. Those were lymph nodes. And they were so big that a trained eye, a doctor, they could spot it. I mean, they could have seen me walking down the street and said, "Whoa, whoa, whoa, what's up? You need to go get this checked." But I had no idea. And I never had a symptom ever, not one. They went down the list of night sweats and fatigue and everything. But then I thought, I don't actually know if I had a symptom because I was so not in touch with my body that it was this disconnect where anything could have been happening down here in the body. And I don't know if I really noticed because my mind was just so dominant. It was just, I was making this path and this plan that I didn't really care if my body was on board or not, you know?
Yeah.
Um, and so they ended up doing, a week of all the testing and found out it was stage 4. So it was everywhere: stomach, spleen, bone marrow. And it was not a great lymphoma to have. There are many, many different subtypes. And obviously I had no idea what, any of these were, but I I knew that it was not good. And the doctors were very clear and they said, Caroline, look, you're 27. We can treat you, but we cannot cure you. Your cancer will come back. And we don't know what's going to happen. And I remember, I think I got that news about a week after I was diagnosed. It took about a week to get all the information to where we could really understand what was happening. And that was the night I went home. And I just remember thinking, I I don't know how to do this. I don't have a goal anymore because I can't have a goal of to beat this, because I'm not going to beat it. So what do I do? Why would I go through the treatment? Why would I put myself through this? And my uncle came in and he was the one who sat me down and he said, Caroline, look, at the time he was very involved with MD Anderson and in a lot of the meetings. And he said, I've just gotten back from MD Anderson and I've met with these doctors. I've met with these researchers. I have looked them in the eye and I've had them tell me there is so much happening right now. There are so many great drugs in the pipeline. Maybe it's not for your cancer, but one day it will be. So your goal needs to be to buy time. And you just need to do what you need to do to live another day and put
Mhm.
one baby step in front of the other to
Mhm.
where eventually you'll get there. May not be as soon as you want, but that's what you have to do. And that resonated with me. I thought, I can do that. I can take baby steps and I can buy time. And so that's just what I started doing. And I got through my first 8 rounds of chemo, went into remission. My cancer came back about 8 months later. I did my first bone marrow transplant, went into remission again for about 3.5 years, and then my cancer came back for a third time. And the third time was difficult in so many ways, mainly because I was a mom at that point. I had a 2-year-old daughter and a 5-week-old son. So I'd really thought this cancer was behind me. And then I really thought after the first bone marrow transplant that that was the cure, that hopefully was going to work, and it wasn't. And emotionally being a mom and realizing the stakes, it wasn't about me, it was about these kids, these babies, and knowing that we didn't have a lot of treatment options available to us because we'd already used them. That was the most uh, you know terrifying, emotionally devastating time,
Mm.
that those few weeks. And then my doctor came to me and said, there's a clinical trial. It's brand new, but I can get you in. And he did. And I think it was a 40% mortality rate, but we did it. And it took about a year, all said and done. And here I'm 11 and a half years cancer free. So it was, I always look back and I tell my uncle all the time, I'm like, well, look at you. You were right. This treatment, this clinical trial was brand new and we'd never even heard of it. And that is ultimately what cured me, even though at one point they said a cure was impossible.
Wow. Thank
Mm,
you so much for sharing all that. I'm super curious.
of
So how many
course.
years was this whole process?
That gosh, so I started in 2004 and I think I finished my last treatment in 2011, I want to say.
Wow.
So, yeah, and then I think the side effects since this post second transplant have been difficult in that you're so ready to feel normal, and I think a lot of cancer patients can relate to this. Actually, I think a lot of people who've been through any illness can relate to this.
Yeah.
You're just ready to be normal, you want to just not feel horrible. You want to have energy. You want to not miss things that you've missed for so long. And
Yeah.
um, those are tough, and it's tough on the family, it's tough on friends, it's tough on my kids, and that has been sort of my challenge since I've been in remission this third time. But I think that is also what has taught me so much, because it's I've had to um, I've had to not just acknowledge it or deal with it. I've had to learn how to live through it in a positive way. I
Yeah.
had a friend tell me one time, we were talking about something very insignificant. I can't even remember. And she said something like, I don't think life is intended for us to get through something. I think life is intended for us to, you know, thrive through something. And I thought, wow. And then that's sort of what I've been trying to do, is acknowledge the pain or the sadness or the anger or the fear, because it's there. But then I also try not to dwell in it or hold on too tightly or dismiss it. I try to just give it the attention it needs, and then I try to let it go.
Yeah. 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 Whoa. That must have been so hard. I would imagine you've learned just love, like deep love for yourself and for your life, patience like no other. I'm
Hmm.
like dealing with fear, dealing with anxiety. You're probably a
Hmm.
master at all those due to what you've been through. You're probably the
Yeah.
best mother there ever was.
Well, you are very sweet. I
I-
think I definitely am a master at recognizing it. I don't think I always
yes.
handle it so well. I think,
So you're human. Okay, you're
I
human.
am human. Oh my gosh, yes. I
Yeah,
think,
yeah,
I think there have been so many benefits for my kids. I think there have also been so many um, tremendous disadvantages and hardships. Um, I try to then see the positive. For example, my son has anxiety,
yeah,
and of course, I feel so guilty. I feel so guilty that he went through what he went through, really from 0 to 2. And everything you now read says those are the really critical years in terms of secure attachment. So I try not to read them. But I know that so much of
mm,
what he goes through is linked to it. And maybe it's also just how he came into this world. But I also then see the flip side of this. He is so empathetic, and he is so just kind and loving, and in my mind, perfect. And he wouldn't be that if he didn't have the struggles that he has. So I try my hardest to see the good and the bad, and it's
yeah,
always balanced, right? You can't have too
yeah,
much of one without the other, or else it's not going to work. And so, um, I the guilt was something that was very hard for me to let go, and I work on that all the time. My kids did way more screen time than other kids, because I couldn't do it. I did not feel well enough to get out of bed. I mean, we all have those days, right? And I think trying to be your best self, whether it's for your parents, your kids, your husband, your friend, anyone that worries about you, you don't want them to worry, because you put them through so much. And I was so acutely aware of what I'd put my family through, that I wanted to be okay, and I wanted to be good, and I wanted to feel great. Even though I didn't, I tried many days to give off the impression that I did. And I think the balance for me was being honest with my kids, but yet in an age appropriate way without scaring them, because I know our kids know way more than we think they do. So I
yeah.
never wanted to keep big things from them, because I knew they would know something. And if I gave them enough information to give them a little bit of comfort, that at least they were in the loop, then I was hopeful that it would help with any anxiety that they may not even be aware of that would come up, because they didn't feel that they had any control or knew what was happening.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm not a mother yet, but I think about that often. Being,
Hmm.
you don't need to be a completely open book for your kids, but you got to at least be somewhat open
Yeah.
so that they could learn and understand and grow with you rather
Hmm.
than take what they see and internalize it and make it like, oh, mom doesn't love me. So that's beautiful.
Yeah.
That thank you for
Yeah.
that reminder.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Hmm.
Um, so I definitely want to get to talking about Riley in your book. But
Yeah.
I just have this question that keeps coming up.
Mhm.
What's the biggest lesson cancer taught you?
Mm. You know, I it is a lesson that I am still trying to learn, but I am very aware that this is the lesson I need to learn in this life or through this particular health challenge.
Yeah.
And it is to, how do I, to let go, not hold on to a moment too tightly, to live in a moment and be able to just experience it and not have fear for what's coming up and have trust that whatever is coming up will be okay. It may not be great, it might be hard, but it will be what it'll be, and I will get through it, and it will get better at some point. Life does.
Yeah.
It always gets better. But I think the pressure sometimes post cancer of, "Oh my gosh, I made it through, what people said I couldn't do and I did it. I got to go live this big life now, this YOLO mentality, like live like you were dying. I've been given a gift." But then you come home and you have bills, you have retirement account, you have kids, you have responsibilities. You can't go live this big grand life. And I became very fearful that I wouldn't have the next day or the next hour. So I didn't want to be in the moment because I didn't want to lose anything. And so for me, my
Mm,
lesson, my challenge is just being in the moment, really being in the moment, not being fearful, trusting, letting myself experience any joy, fear, anything that's in the moment, and then letting it go and
yeah.
not trying to hold on to anything because
Yeah.
it's all fleeting.
I love that answer. I really do. Thank you for sharing
Mhm.
that because people can learn this lesson without having to go through cancer. It's right
Mhm.
there for us to just grab, you know? So it's
It
a
is.
beautiful reminder.
Well, and it's interesting.
Beautiful.
You brought up Riley, but Riley was my rescue dog who I'll go into him a little bit in a minute, but he
Yeah.
I think dogs in general, I think one of the most incredible lessons that dogs have taught me is dogs can only live in the moment, right? They don't have this concept of time. So, I leave for 5 minutes, I leave for 5 hours. My dogs don't really, they're still so happy to see me,
Yeah.
and so they have to live in the moment. And I think watching Riley and the way he did it after all he'd been through before, we found each other, and the way that he was able to trust again, trust humans, trust life, and just be, it was this guide almost. He served as this spiritual guide to me to just, it was okay. We were okay. Everything was okay. And we were just right there. And so I think that, I think dogs are so wonderful for so many reasons, but I think they bring you back, even just being next to them with their breathing or their snoring, that calming presence they have. I believe it's because it just puts us back in our bodies, in the moment, in the now, and we're okay.
Yes. Oh, you said it so perfect. Dogs for sure, but like all animals just
Mhm.
get you in the moment
Yes,
because they're in the moment.
that's
That's
right.
why, yeah, I wish everyone would just have at least one
Mhm.
animal so that they could
Oh, me too.
learn through them, you know? Like dog
Mhm.
animals are I call them my medicine. They just put me
Yes.
right back where I want to be. If I'm going off in scary places,
Mhm.
anxious,
Yes.
overthinking, ooh,
Yes.
let's get back to the animals. Like connect
Yes.
with your animal, you know?
Yes.
So,
Well, they keep it so simple, It's just
oh,
this
yeah,
unconditional love. That's it, right? Like,
that's
that
it.
is it. And I always say when my friends talk to me that are, "Oh, should I get a dog and all this?" And I say, "Well, here's the deal. This is as simple as it is. Humans are imperfect. We don't mean to hurt each other, hopefully, but we do. We can't do it perfectly. So we hurt each other and we have these cracks in our hearts, and a dog or a cat's or a horse or an animal's love will come in and it fills those cracks and it makes our heart whole, and it
Yes.
literally puts it back together, and it is that
Yes.
powerful.
Yes. So yeah,
Mhm.
you tell that to your friend, you're like, "So, up to you. Like, what are you gonna do?" Like,
Yes, they got a dog.
yes,
They
winning.
did.
Awesome. I love that. People so
They
I used
did,
to work
yeah.
like, I have a lot of adoption videos on my YouTube, or I used to, and
Mm,
worked with rescues and whatnot, and I wish I
mhm,
had that answer for people when they
mm,
ask me about it, because it's
mhm.
just like, yeah, you're kind of not smart if you don't get one, you know?
Right,
Like, they're
right.
right there for you, and you
They're
can learn
right
unconditional
there.
love, presence,
Yes.
peace, all of it.
Yes, yes,
All you gotta
and
do is
it's
take care of them.
scary. Oh, yeah, and it's easy,
It's not hard.
I've had dogs my whole life, so it was interesting talking to this friend because I'd never thought about never having a dog, the questions, what do they eat? How
Yeah,
many times a day? What
yeah.
and I remember telling her, I said, "It's easier than you think, but it's also a little it's gonna be different and weird." Like, this dog comes home, and for the first week, you're just staring at each other. Like, I know I'm supposed to love
Strangers.
you, but I
Yeah.
don't know you.
Yeah,
How
yeah,
are
yeah,
we gonna
totally.
do this? And she said, "Yes, that happened." It was like the first night, she just woke up and they were staring at each other, and she was like,
Oh,
"This
I
feels a
love it.
little weird." And then I joke now, I mean, she has a nanny for her dog, she has 2 human kids, but no, 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 it was re and she loves that dog, and again, I think it's just you don't realize you need it until you have it, and then you can never ever live without it.
Yes, yes.
Mhm.
Oh, beautiful,
Yeah,
beautiful. Okay,
yeah.
so if it's okay with you, if we can just talk about Riley some, and
Oh,
how
yes.
he helped you through your
Mm.
your healing.
Yeah, I could talk about this dog all day long. So,
Okay, good, good, because I want to
I,
hear all about him.
you know, Riley dog spelled backwards is God, and I've heard that before, and God brought me this dog because this dog and I were not supposed to find each other. We had just moved
Mm,
into our first rental cottage in Santa Monica. I had finished my first bout with cancer. So my first 8 rounds of chemo, I was told, "Go live your life, but your cancer will come back. We don't know when, but go live your life." And that was a very difficult way to live. My husband and I had just gotten married, and I couldn't go back to work. I couldn't go back to school because I was still doing some maintenance treatments that took me out for a couple weeks at a time. And so I didn't know what to do with myself, and I still was pretty type A, and my body wasn't strong enough to do the running. All the things I'd done, I couldn't do. So I really was at a loss. And emotionally, I needed something to focus on. And one day I was sitting at home in this our new rental cottage, and I'm googling rescue dogs Los Angeles, and I'm just scrolling through. And I knew I shouldn't be scrolling through because our landlord terrified me. His name was Jerry. We are good friends now, but at the time he terrified me. And at the very top of our lease, it was absolutely no dogs, no exceptions ever, immediate eviction. And I knew this. Jerry had been attacked by a dog when he was younger. Um, but for some reason, I started scrolling, and I scrolled quite a ways. And then I saw this picture of this dog, and he looked like a gigantic yellow lab. And it said he was half Great Dane, half yellow lab. He was about a year old, emaciated. You could just see the ribs. He had burn marks on his body, and his name was Riley. And he was being put down. It was one of the urgent, he had hours to live.
wow.
And I remember that picture so well because I just remember his eyes. I remember this dog's eyes, and I think I saw my eyes in that. I think he
Mm,
was scared. I think he was hurt. I think he was broken, but I think he had hope. And there was something in those eyes that I just called my husband and I said, "I think I'm going to get a dog." And he said, "Well, I hope it's a small dog because how are we going to hide this from Jerry?" And I'm thinking, "Oh my God, he's a Great Dane. What am I going to do?"
oh man.
And so I did. I went and got that dog, and he was in worse condition than it had seemed. And he was so distrustful, and he had every right to be. He was in the back seat just quivering. And, for a week, he stayed in his corner. And I tried to just, let him do his thing. And about a weekend, I was cooking steak and I saw him kind of creep into the kitchen, and I gave him a bite of steak and his tail wagged for the first time. And I just reached over and grabbed my husband's
Oh
steak and just
man.
gave the whole thing to Riley. And he
Yeah.
was just, and that was really kind of our bonding moment. And ever since that day, he became my project. He became my life. He became um, my everything, really. And my goal was to rehabilitate this dog. And I still didn't know what he'd been through, but I knew he was terrified of the hair dryer, and I believed that the burn marks were somehow associated. And I knew he couldn't walk very well, but I knew he loved his tennis ball. This tennis ball was everything to him. This was his security. This was his stuffed animal. This was everything to him. And so I took him to the beach very early in the morning, and I'd kind of toss the ball into the waves. And we did that every day for weeks, and that strengthened him a bit. So then we got to the point where he could walk a little bit, and then he could sort of trot. And then we'd go to the dog park and we'd toss this ball. And he was so awkward at first, but he wasn't in pain. And as the weeks went by, this dog just became stronger and stronger. And I remember I had a man come up to me and he just said, "I've been watching you with your dog." And that's what it's supposed to be. That connection right there. And it wasn't even really apparent to me because that was all I'd known, and it was the first time I kind of stepped back and looked at what we had. And I thought, oh my gosh, like I freaking love this dog, and that was the most special time we had. We had probably 6 or 7 months of that before my cancer came back.
Mhm.
And before I went into the hospital for my first bone marrow transplant, there was, again, it's a high mortality rate. I didn't know what was going to happen. I had my husband, but I had to say goodbye to Riley, and I had to say goodbye to him for at least 2 months. And I knew he wouldn't understand, and I knew he was going to worry, and I knew he was going to be devastated. And that was the hardest thing ever because he didn't understand. And I had his picture up in my hospital room, and all the nurses asked about him. And when I came home, he was just there. And on the days when I was referring to earlier, needing to be okay for everyone and have energy and, not worry my family, I could go and get in bed with Riley and I didn't have to talk. I didn't have to be okay. I could cry. I could be asleep. I could just watch Friends reruns all day. It didn't matter. He just was happy to be next to me. And it fed me and energized me. And I craved it. And then, as the weeks and months went by, I got stronger and stronger. And then I had my daughter, and then we had my son, and then everything happened again. And I remember leaving for the hospital the second time, and my daughter was 2, and my son at the time was 6 months. And I remember my daughter said, "Mom, who's going to have tea parties with me when you're gone?" And I just remember standing there because I didn't want to lie to her, and I didn't want to say I didn't want to make a false promise. And I'll never forget, Riley had kind of come around the corner and she turned around and she said, "Oh, that's right. Riley will do it with me." And that was
Yes.
it, And sure
Oh
enough, when I
man.
got home from the hospital, poor Rye had these brightly painted paw nails, all over. And, I think my son had put like a plastic Mickey Mouse drill up his nose. And, he just took it. He was just there. And he's this big, but, now very healthy dog. And those kids just climbed all over him. And I think also just fed from that love he gave. Um,
Mm.
and so that's just, for our family, he was essential. I mean, he was absolutely an essential source of comfort and peace and strength and consistency that we could count on in a time where things were so crazy and uncertain and unpredictable. He was that reminder of just, we're okay. Everyone's okay. We're okay.
Mm.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, so so beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
Oh man.
Mm.
Which rescue did you get him from? From Santa
It's
Monica.
called Ace of Hearts.
Ace
And
of
you know the
Hearts. Oh, it's in the
craziest
Palisades, right?
thing? It is. It's in
Yes,
I
I heard
think
of that one.
she lives in the Palisades, and then they have a small office in West Hollywood.
Okay.
And the craziest thing was he came with the name Riley, and I never changed his collar. It was a really cool, almost cowhide type collar.
Yeah.
And the rescue had taken pictures and listed them on their website, which is how I found him. And I was hiking Runyon Canyon with Riley months later, and this lady stopped me and she was like, Caroline, um, is is that Riley? And I'm thinking,
What? He's famous.
how do you know this dog? And she said that it was a long story, but her boyfriend was actually part of an undercover investigation that had gone down in a pet store in the Beverly Center. And they had undercover cameras in the pet store because they were trying to prosecute the people for animal abuse. And Riley was one of the dogs on the video. And so I found
Oh
out
my
more
God.
about what he had come from a puppy mill, and the burn marks were from the grooming hair dryer hoses that people, I'm not sure who, after hours they would burn the dogs through the cages. And Riley had been moved to the back of the store and was in a tiny cage and had never been let out, so that's why his shoulders never formed correctly, because he's this huge dog in this tiny cage. So it was heartbreaking to hear, but they shut the pet store down. Everybody, from what I heard, was
Good.
prosecuted and justice is served. But there's a special place in hell. It's just
Sp-
so horrible. But and that's what I say. I say that what Riley went through and how he you know was able to trust life again. I keep going back to that, but I just think, my God, if that had happened to me or my kids or my friends or anyone, I think it would be very understandable to really be very closed off and very um, just fearful, And
100%.
Riley was fearful of things like the hair dryer. To the day he died, if he heard me say, I'm going to go take a shower, he would go to the back corner of our garage and violently shake, even with me. I mean,
Oh
I did
my
not dry my hair
gosh.
for years, but
Not worth it.
I, but with humans, with love, that he was able to go so fully into it. Um, it amazed me. And he was never aggressive against other humans. You would think, well, maybe he felt safe with us, but if, other men or,
Yeah.
you always hear of these, of, a lot of rescue dogs having some triggers, understandably. And, he never did, ever did. It was pretty incredible.
Yeah, well, it sounds like just as much as he had such a purpose in you and your family's life, you guys
Hmm.
filled the same void for him. It was a mutual
Oh.
exchange for
We
sure.
had a lot of fun together. We
I bet.
he had a great life. He towards the I guess it was the last and maybe 4 or 5 years of his life, maybe 5 years of his life, he became my service dog. And so he was able to go everywhere with us. And rightly so. We needed him. But I mean, again, he was the size of a Great Dane, 140 pounds. And we were living in California and I grew up in Texas. So we'd be on the plane, going back and forth. And my brother was like, Caroline, you're not taking a small horse on the airplane. I'm like, oh, I am. And Rye
Yes,
would
I am.
come and he's on the plane, and he went to Disneyland with us. He went, every trip, every hotel. I mean, really, he went everywhere with us. And it was great for us. It was also incredible because, he was around people so much. And when you see a dog at Disneyland or in a restaurant, even if you have 10 dogs at home, it's still like, oh, let me see your dog. There's something weird about seeing a dog out and everyone wants to come
Yeah,
say hi.
totally.
And so that happened often. Um, but then there were these stories that stood out to me that over the years people reminded me or brought up, and the effect Riley had on people. And in my daughter's preschool, it was I think they started young and the parents kind of went with them and stayed, and it was the most incredible preschool. But some of the kids were nervous going in, and Riley used to ride around. I had an old Yukon at the time, and the back window was always open even when I was driving, because Riley would be in the back and he just he just liked to look out the window. And I could do it in California. It was never too hot. So everyone would see me driving around with this window open. But in the parking lot, he would be there. And the kids started coming over. And I didn't know this for a while, but they were rubbing his head in the morning before they went in for courage. And this continued through preschool. It then continued at the school they moved on to in elementary school. And after Rye passed, I got this crayon drawing in the mail. And it was from one of the girls that had rubbed Riley's head for a couple years at that point. And I tear up every time I say it. She thanked him for the courage that he gave her for so many years. And I didn't even know that that was happening, and it was it was incredible to see, you know, the outpouring of love that came in once he passed, just
Mm.
the lives that he touched that you don't even know. Oh, I tear up every time I talk about him. I'm sorry.
Oh,
Um,
please, no worries.
but
Hmm.
yeah, he was a gift to this world, which has given me the courage to do what I'm doing now because I never wanted to talk about myself. I never wanted to, focus on, look at me, I did it, yay, everyone should hear it. I think it's an inspirational story and I love sharing it for the message of hope and inspiration. But what really gave me the courage to speak and write and do all that I do to try to, spread this message is because Riley's life was so special and our journey together was so, I don't even have incredible, that was worth sharing, and his love and the lessons he taught and the just the gifts that he gave this world, that I can talk about all day long. I could write about it
Mm.
all day long. And that to me is worth sharing because I do think people relate to animals, whether you've had one or you haven't. I think that we all have felt that safe being, and the comfort and peace that that brings. And I think that is essential to life in struggle. When we're in struggle, we just need to have something that is constant, it is unconditional, and it brings us back to that moment. And that's what Riley did. That's what he taught me. That's what he taught so many people. And that is the message that I can continue sharing now that he's gone.
Wow. So he just continues to be
Hmm.
purposeful for you even after he's passed. That's how
Yes,
powerful he is. And it's beautiful because
that
I
is how
believe
powerful.
is that him right behind you? Um, in the
Yes, that is
screen?
him.
Yeah. Oh
Yes,
my
that is right.
gosh.
Yes, he was so beautiful and so
Beautiful.
happy. he
Yes.
he always
After
looked like he
you.
had a smile. Well, thank you.
Yeah.
He
Yeah.
Oh man. And I mean, I always talk about the meaningful stories, but the humorous stories this dog had, it just they are endless. I mean, he once he found his groove, man, he got into some trouble. We
Good.
could write just a book on Riley Rose stories, and um, I mean, it actually is worth mentioning that landlord Jerry did find out about Riley, and
I was wondering.
yes, he found out Riley and I had been to the dog park, and we had a very set schedule, because I think we went to the dog park every day around 2 or 2:30, I can't remember, and we did it every day. So when we came back, we saw police cars, a fire truck, everything was in front of our little cottage. And our cottage was the front, and there was a driveway along the side, and there were a couple smaller cottages behind. So there were probably 8 of us that shared a driveway. Ours just happened to be in the front. And I thought, oh my God, what happened? And then so we're getting out, and then I see Jerry, and I'm like, Riley,
Oh
stay in the
no.
car.
Yeah.
And Riley was still nervous, so he was always in the car. That was his safe place. But so I get out and I walk over, and I'm like, what happened? And basically, the policeman was speaking to Jerry and myself, and he was said, look, this guy's been watching y'all, and he knew that the girl who lives in the front and her big dog left every day around 2:30. And Jerry looks at me, he's like, what big dog? I don't have a, he every other word was the F word, just I don't like effing dogs. I don't allow dogs here, and I'm like, oh no, no.
What a
And
horrific situation.
the policeman looks over and he was like, well, sir, that dog actually saved you a huge problem here because I guess that the robber had been so terrified of Riley, even though he knew Riley was gone,
Oh.
that he didn't touch our house and he didn't touch quite a few in the back. And I think he was scared off thinking that we were coming home, even though it wasn't us. So the policeman's theory, whether he was correct or not, was that Riley kind of saved the day. And so Jerry looks at me and he's like, let me see the dog. I'm like, oh
Oh
no.
my
So I get
gosh.
Riley and I bring him over and I'm like, okay, Jerry, this is Riley. And Jerry looks at him and he goes, if anyone asks you, you tell him that he bites like a Rottweiler.
Oh my
He
gosh.
loved Rye because he was like, keeping everyone safe and keeping Jerry's properties from getting burglarized. And so we laughed about that so many times. And Jerry and Riley became very good friends. So
Well,
yeah,
thank goodness you didn't let Jerry scare you away and you just were like,
I
F it, I'm
know.
gonna get Riley, it's gonna work out. You just
That
trusted
one
and
worked out
look at
well.
it.
That yeah.
That's like
That usually
crazy. That's cool.
Yeah, yeah. That one, yes. Thank goodness because it's hard to find a little places over on the west side, we looked
Yeah.
for a long time for that little rental cottage and we did not want to get kicked out at all.
Yeah.
But, we
I
were
love it.
willing to do it for Rye. It was
Yes.
so
So
funny.
many people say, "Oh, I can't get a dog because the landlord says no." But there's always
Right.
a way. If you really have that strong calling towards an animal, there's a
Yeah.
way, you know?
There is a
And
way. There is a
and
way.
the positives that can come of it are just endless, as
Mhm.
you are the perfect exemplification of that.
Thank
Oh boy.
you.
Of course. So
Yeah.
so how long through the journey, so when did you decide to write a book all about Riley? Or
Mhm.
and your journey as well?
I started, I think the interesting transition that I went through, and I didn't even really realize I was going through it, was as I've said, I started very type A plus plus, and I kind of ended up a B minus in terms of personality. I went from a type A to a type B in the most extreme ways that um, I always imagined myself being a surgeon and being in my left brain and being, very regimented and scheduled, and I ended up in sort of this more artistic, easygoing, life comes and goes mentality. And so writing for me was not, it wasn't easy and it was scary, but I'd always heard to process emotions, to start journaling. And once I was far enough out, because I couldn't do it while I was going through treatment, it was too real, it was too present, it was too scary. I had to give myself quite a few years, actually, on the flip side, to really then begin processing my feelings. And I at least knew enough to know I'd been through some sort of trauma. And I was curious about the why, right? Like, why did I get cancer? Why me? Why someone so healthy? Why did it happen? And why did it grow so fast in my body? And the only thing I could really come up with was that there had to be some emotional component. I'm a big believer now that unresolved uh, emotions, issues, trauma, whatever you want to call it, can manifest in different ways. And for me, it was a perfect storm into my cancer. So I knew I had to start to process it to survive and to thrive and to not um, go back to that place. And so I began that work, which was the hardest thing I've done. And it was exhausting, it was emotional, it was scary, um, but it was essential for me and it was huge. So my journaling and kind of everything I'm processing that I'm working through led to more writing, led to more brain dumps, which led to several people that I sort of was able to meet, saying you should write a book, you should write a book. But it always went back to, but yes, I get that I had a story, but we all have stories. And how do I make this something that A, I want to write about, and B, that is relatable and meaningful to me? And one day had just gotten home from the hospital. I was in bed with Riley. My kids were at school, my husband was at work. And I wrote a letter to the owner of the dog rescue where I found Riley. And I just said, I don't think I've ever thanked you. Actually, I don't think I've ever followed up with you, but I'm just thinking about you because without you, I wouldn't have this dog and this gift. Then he is right here with me. And I need him today so desperately. And I just want to thank you. And this letter sort of, it got to her and it was sent to a friend that then called me and said, you, that's what you got to write. You have to write about Riley. That's the story. And I said, I can do that. I can write about Riley. I can talk about Riley. That's the part that is enjoyable for me. And so then it was a very interesting combination of what does that look like and what emerges and what is the story? You know, is it cancer? Is it Riley? Is it motherhood? Or is it actually all of the above? And
Yeah.
really, sort of the overarching theme is I call Riley the master of the moment and what he has taught me in this life and the beauty that he left behind. So, and
Mm,
actually, I started writing and he passed halfway through writing. And I took quite a long break after that. And I thought,
understandable.
I know I'm going to finish this, but I don't know where to go from here. And that was the hardest part, that section. And then it for me is such a passion project now because I'm proud of it. But I'm also so excited for people to read about him and his just, you know, his antics, his love, his loyalty, his resilience. And it's he is just such a lesson for really all of us, you know. And I wrote it exactly as it happened. And I think I'm still amazed by him. And so I think writing that for me helped me process our journey together. Um, and I think it just is a feel good, like just powerful um, story that had to be told.
Yes, definitely. Definitely.
Mhm.
Thank you for did you say you went to medical school?
I
And
was
then
in
you
med
kind of
school when
just
I was
switched.
diagnosed.
Got it.
Yeah,
And then you
because
stopped and
uh-huh.
switched.
I
Okay.
had to.
That's
Yeah,
interesting.
it's
Yeah.
when I was first diagnosed. My dad's a surgeon, and I used to love to go watch his surgeries in high school before HIPAA, and I just loved it. So that's what I wanted to do. And I remember when the doctor told us, and my dad was so upset, and I was still kind of like, "What is happening?" And I remember the first thing I said was, I can't deal with this right now. I have finals coming up next week. And my dad just looked at me and was like, Caroline, you do not have finals anymore. You know, that is over. You are now just focusing on saving your life.
Yeah.
And to put those books down, you know, was like it just what do you do? You know, you've been so immersed in it and it's everything you've just spent every waking hour running or training or studying or you know, you literally have to just close the door immediately and go into this world of people are bringing you warm blankets and you're in bed and you have to be lazy. You know, you have to
Mm,
do everything that you didn't do. And looking back, I know it was just God kind of hitting me over the head. Like, you're not going this way. You need to go this way.
yeah.
And that was the process of me really meeting my body, you know, checking in with my body, understanding that it's the body, soul, the mind, all of it's connected. You know, it's not just the mind leading the way. And, you know, I mean, I used to jog 15 miles a day. Today I jog mile and a half, if that, you know,
Yeah.
and maybe two. And that happens twice a week, maybe. And that's great, you know. And there are days I wake up and my mind is, I want to go jog, I want to go further, I want to, and then I realize my body can't do that. It just can't. And that's great. So I'm just gonna walk, run, whatever I can and check that box and we're good to go. And
Yeah.
so it's a very different, I make decisions from a different place and I'm more of an honoring my body for what it's done and what it's been through and that it's still here and not trying to override it, I think, with
Totally.
my will or determination.
Yes. Thank you for
Hmm.
sharing, like what cancer has gifted you.
Hmm.
Because, a lot of people just, if they've been through cancer or not, They just can't see it like that. But and if you
Hmm.
don't, it's a kind of a waste, you know? So thank you for
Right.
doing so much with your, you know, your trauma, your past, because it's not easy,
Mhm.
but you're sharing it with the others so they could get healing from it as well. So truly, thank you.
Well, I feel the
Um
same way about you and your podcast. I love your
oh,
message.
thank
I
you.
love everything that you said. And I love the title, The Sacred Pause, because
Well,
it
thank
so
you.
goes back to the living in the moment and just taking a minute and just, to me, it's just appreciating that minute, that moment, stopping, recognizing, looking around, checking in, kind of it's everything really. And it's everything I used to not ever do. And what this
Mm,
whole thing has taught me is to take a sacred pause, really, at the end of the day. And that is what has made my life so wonderful, meaningful, happy, joyful, scary, all of the
of
above.
course.
But
Yeah.
that's what makes it worth living. I mean, truly, that's what makes it the beautiful mess that life is. And it all comes back to that sacred pause. And I love, love, love that you titled this. It's a perfect, perfect way to say it.
Thank you. You're so intuitive. That was actually my next question. Like, what does
Mm.
a sacred pause mean to you? And you're,
Oh, no way. Okay, add mind
great
reader to my
job.
new list. Yeah.
Please. Hey,
Oh,
you can
that's
be a psychic.
amazing.
It's right there if you want to
Yeah.
be one.
There it goes. There it goes.
And
I
thank you
mean,
for
yeah, I think so.
allowing me to talk about the power of animals. I haven't had any guests
Mm,
yet where we are in tune like that or where that could be the
mhm,
subject, but it's
mhm,
everything to me. I'm vegan. Animals are the reason I'm like
mm.
doing anything, honestly. I have 5 animals
Oh,
now. I want to be on a farm one day with my partner here in Utah.
amazing.
So, oh, they're just so
Amazing.
amazing and so healing
Mhm,
if you just allow them
mhm.
to be. And that's what you represent to me. You
Exactly.
just allow, you allow, you allow. And when you
Mhm,
allow, anything is
mhm.
possible, is what
That's
I
right.
believe. So,
That's such a great way
yes,
to allow and accept yourself. They accept us just as we are. And it
yes,
teaches us to kind of do the same because we're so hard on ourselves, we're so critical of ourselves. And if we could
yes.
learn to see ourselves through our dog's eyes, I mean, they love us. And I think, gosh, what if I loved myself the way that my dogs do? That would be so cool.
That's
And it's,
beautiful. Yes.
yeah, right?
They
Like if
teach us
I could
self
look at,
love.
yes, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, like, I feel pretty cool when I'm around my dogs. Like, yes, I'm doing well.
You're doing
So,
well.
but if we could do that, if we could be easier on ourselves and kinder and gentler and all that stuff, just how much more richer our lives would be because those negative voices are just never ending. And
Never ending.
never ending, never ending. So I think it's a good example to have of how to counteract it. And
Yes.
also, honestly, to be like, if Mike can be loved that much by my dog, I can do it.
Of
This
course.
is gives me hope
Exactly.
here.
Yes.
Hmm.
So what other are there any other tools you use? I know you have animals, you have a family, you
Hmm.
run sometimes, you obviously have Riley's
Hmm.
inspiration with you at all times. Are there any other tools
Hmm.
you use? Do you meditate? What else do you do?
Yeah, I've thought a lot about meditation lately. My son's kind of getting into it. I
Ooh,
find
cool.
my jogs these days are kind of meditative. I think I like to go before the sun comes up. I take my big yellow lab with me, and it's very cathartic. It's just healing for me. It's when I do my thinking. I journal now a bit. I love to write. That's really healing for me.
Yeah.
Um, and honestly, resting. I've never been good at resting. I always feel guilty if I am, you
Mm.
know, I love to do stuff from my bed. I mean, I could do everything from bed. I mean,
Yes.
and I used to feel guilty if I got in bed with my laptop or did work there and I have my dogs on me and I don't anymore. I think my biggest tool is to just not feel so guilty or not have so much self doubt or shame. I think those were all big components of why, this whole cancer happened in the first place. I think I carried a lot of that. And I think it's just for me always reminding myself to let that go and it's okay. And so for me, it's just a whole lot of self talk all day long and just
Yeah.
trying to change my default setting to a more positive, accepting, loving of of myself, and not carrying all that negative. Because, like I said, it's all okay. It's great.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
um, I think the more I can sink into that, it gets easier and life just gets that much better.
Totally. Oh, I couldn't
Mhm.
agree more. I love that you said rest. No one has ever said anything like that that I've been aware of.
Mhm.
And it is so true. It is so
Mhm.
true. And once you truly listen to your body and
Mhm.
rest, which people have
Mhm.
really trouble resting, like they really do. People have trouble
Yes.
sleeping, people have trouble relaxing. It's
Mhm.
just do, do, do,
Yes.
do, do. But we're human
Yes.
beings, not human doings. My friend Brianna always
Yes.
says this. That's
Love
not what
that.
we're meant to do. So if you really listen and rest,
Mm.
personally, that's when all the downloads and the inspiration comes
Mhm.
in and fills you up. If you're not doing that,
Mhm.
you're just racing to what? To
Mhm.
die? It's like, what is the point? So
Yeah.
thank you for saying
Yeah.
rest.
Think that's
It's amazing.
exactly right. It's exactly right because it makes us feel good about ourselves that we're doing stuff, right? And
Yeah.
so it's an easy, but then you really think about it and you're like, but is that even worth feeling good about? Like, I went to the grocery store, yay. And so it kind of is, but then if I get home and I'm exhausted, what was that? What was exhausting or what? So it is. I mean, that's exactly right. It's just, and being able to rest and just be and being
Yeah.
okay with that.
Yeah.
That can be more productive than anything else.
Totally. And the worst, one more
Mhm.
point on this, the worst is when you are just absolutely exhausted and then you
Mhm.
just keep doing stuff. Like that is
Mhm.
just so self-destructive, it's ridiculous.
Yes.
So
Yes.
just putting that out there so that everyone can be
Yes.
aware when you do that, just don't.
Yes.
You know,
Just
everything
don't.
can wait. Everything can wait.
Mhm.
You need to
Everything
check
can
in with
wait.
yourself first.
Yeah, and I
Ah,
think it can
beautiful.
be scary if we've never done that.
It's
We think, well,
terrifying.
we're going to feel unproductive, we're going to feel lazy, we're going to feel guilty, we're going to feel. And I think that what we're not saying when we say that, because I know this was true for me, is I don't want to stop because I don't want to see what I might find. I
Totally.
need to keep going so that any little realities that I probably need to be addressing, I don't want to address them. Actually, I don't even want to know about it. I don't want to talk about it. I don't want to think about it. So if I kept going, then I never had to see them, right? So when you rest, it's
So
also
true.
vulnerable, like you are literally just sitting there with your dogs or yourself or whatever. I mean, you could have the TV on, you could have it off, you could have your computer, maybe not, you could have a book, maybe not. But you're going to go in a little deeper into yourself and you're going to notice aches and pains in your body or how you're feeling or if you're tired or not, and you're going to think about some stuff. Stuff's going to come up. And so I think the more we can rest, yes, physically for our body, it's great, but also emotionally, it gives
Mm,
us a minute to process stuff in a really healthy way. And a lot of times that also means like, oh my gosh, I'm having such a good day. You recognize a lot of joy too.
mm.
And
Yes.
gratitude, right? Like that
Yes.
can come up just as much as some negative stuff. So I think it's being vulnerable, but it's also essential in sort of re-emerging balance. Like it's okay. I'm okay. I did that, and I'm good. And you're grateful,
Yes.
and your day goes on.
Yes.
Hmm.
Mm. Ooh, I love it. Truth bumps everywhere. And
Mm.
it's happened a lot. I
Oh.
just didn't want to cut you off and mention it.
I
But they've been coming
love
because
those truth
you're
bumps.
amazing. You truly, truly are.
Thank you.
Oh, of
Thank
course.
you.
So you already answered my sacred pause question. So we'll just move on to um all my listeners, all of our listeners, if they want to
Mhm,
connect with you deeper,
mhm,
share our episode, maybe follow you on your social media sites. Can they find you?
mhm. Yeah, it is Dear Riley Rose, across the board. That is the website. That is
Perfect.
Instagram, Facebook. Dear Riley Rose. That is the title of the book
Perfect.
that's coming out very soon, which I'll let y'all know about.
Awesome.
But yeah, they can go subscribe, they can follow, and they'll get all of the fun updates. And I now have a pug and a yellow lab that are hysterical, and it's so funny. Everyone reacts to these dogs, like the pictures or the whatnot, and so you'll get a lot of these two dogs, and definitely
Beautiful.
a lot of flashbacks to Rye because he's the reason for all of it.
Of course. So two questions. Do you see any attributes of Riley in your new dogs?
I see a lot. I
Yeah, I
do.
bet.
I always said after Rye, I was always going to have 2 dogs. If it was up to me, I'd probably have 5 or 6, but my husband has sort of put the limit on, and I was so fearful of having that connection with another dog. I know I'll never have that connection that I had with Rye. Someone said, "You get one soulmate dog." And I think that's true, and I know that was Riley. So I never
Oh,
wanted to
wow.
recreate that. And I never also wanted to I was so scared to go back into that bond because it was so painful when
When
he
you
when he passed.
passed.
And so I we had Gus, our lab, who kind of found us, and it's funny. I'll see pictures and I can't tell sometimes who's who. And I have to go back to where were we? Oh, that was Riley. Their faces are, it's scary how similar. And Gus is just different enough. He's not Riley, but it's perfect because he's not trying to be. And
Yeah.
then we have this little pug, and we've never had a pug before. And he is the funniest thing you've ever seen. And these 2 dogs love each other. So I don't feel guilty if I am gone for hours, or
Great.
they're together. And it is so different and fun. And I don't want to say I'm detached from them at all. I mean, we are together all the time, but it's a different relationship. I think
Yeah.
people say like your heart just grows bigger. Riley's part of my heart will always be his, and it just grew to accommodate these 2, and it'll keep growing as we get more. And um, it's amazing how these dogs have such different personalities, but they do. You see it. I'm sure with all of yours, they are just these incredible little beings they are funny and smart, and they are absolutely perfect for me, um, right now. And I couldn't do it without them. I really couldn't.
Mm. Mm. Beautiful. I could talk about other people's dogs all day.
I know. I
Uh,
know.
so my last question, I like to just
Mhm.
open it up a little more to my guests and just
Mhm.
see if there's anything you want to ask me or any final comments you'd like to
Mhm.
share with our listeners. Now would be a great time to do that.
Oh, well, what are your dogs' names? I've been wondering that.
Oh, Kona is the pit bull Vishla.
Yeah.
Nala, you just mentioned that someone told you that you have one soul dog in your lifetime.
Yes. Yes.
Nala is it.
Yeah.
Oh
Yeah.
God,
Is she
Nala's
named
it.
after the Lion King?
Yeah, basically.
Yeah.
Because
I
our
love
friend
it.
named her dog Nala, and we're like, "Whoa, Nala sounds so nice." And then we remembered
Yeah.
about Lion King. But
Yes.
she's a lot like Nala on the Lion King, so
Yes. I
it worked
love
great.
that. I
Thank you,
love
thank you.
that.
And then our third one is named Rue, pretty
Mm.
much off of Hunger Games,
Okay.
um, and I just like, and she kind of looks like a kangaroo, so it's perfect.
Oh my goodness.
And then we have 2 cats. They're half sisters,
Mm.
and their name is Kia Ora. It together they're Kia Ora, which is a Maori
Nice.
slogan. My mom's from New Zealand, so
Oh my
uh,
gosh, that's so cool.
yeah. So we wanted to bring some culture into our animals. But
Oh,
thank you
I
for
love
asking. That's
that.
so sweet. That's so sweet.
Yeah. Oh
I
gosh, I
love it.
mean, I'm the same. I could talk about dogs, and I don't know cats as well, but they're just, yeah, I could do it all day. So
Well,
I know.
are you a cat lover, or you're kind of just like, oh, I don't know.
I just don't know cats. I've never been
Yeah.
around them. All been allergic, or my son's highly allergic. His guitar teacher has a cat who's adorable, and we love walking in and seeing Sensei. But my son breaks out in
Sensei.
hives. So yeah,
Oh
because his is the
shoot.
guitar dojo, and so he rescued this cat, or I guess the cat kind of found him. And so we went in one day, and he's like, "Hey, this is our cat, Sensei." And, for the longest time, I didn't put it together that like the dojo and sensei. And
Yeah,
then
yeah.
one night I was like, oh, I get it. And my son looked at me like,
It clicks.
Mom, you just got that. And he's
Oh
11,
boy.
and I'm like, sorry, bud. Took me a little time. But so I
At
mean,
least I
love
got
them. It's just, it would be like if we got a cat, it would be like my friend asking me about a dog. I just don't know. I don't know their habits. I'm not
totally.
sure. But I write a lot of the bios for our local animal rescue. So
Mhm.
they love like funny bios, like create like a Tinder profile for a cat. So it's
Yeah.
funny. and that I've gotten to know cats a little bit more because I'll meet them and I'll get to know their personality. So I can go home and be like, old man, knows you turned up the air conditioning, Susan,
Yeah.
stuff like that, where it's
Yes,
sort of
totally.
more appealing for people to want to
Yes.
adopt them. So, but yeah, it's funny. It just dogs have kind of been my jam.
So you sound like a huge rescue advocate. Are
Oh
all your
yeah.
animals have been rescues? I know
Mhm.
Riley was.
They are, and I definitely got into some trouble after Rye passed. I thought I'd honor him by really going in deep with a different dog rescue in Los Angeles, and we just started pulling animals. And it's I think going to the shelter is the most heartbreaking thing because you can't save all of them, and you want to, and it was looking back, it was the absolute wrong thing for me to do at that time because I was already grieving in such a significant way. And then I
Mhm.
go into these shelters and see all these other dogs, and it was a little crazy. I mean, we just started pulling them and bringing them back. And my very good friend was a vet, so she would do the neutering or spay or any medical treatment that needed to happen. And then we'd try to find homes. And my husband was like, "Hey, we have two small kids here. We have." It was just getting crazy. So I had to kind of pull back from doing the physical
Yeah,
work at
yeah,
the
yeah, yeah.
rescues, um, and which was for me probably a good thing. So I help
Yeah.
out and I speak for a lot of their events, or I'll write the bios, or I fundraise, or I do
Beautiful.
stuff that I can behind the scenes. But
Beautiful.
it's not for the faint of heart. I think those people that help out in pulling dogs and fostering dogs are heroes because I mean, there is just nothing that will break your heart more. There's nothing that will
100%.
break it more. And we couldn't do it without them, and so they are my heroes. They really are.
Me too. Whenever I hear an awful story, kind of like the one Riley was put through,
Mhm.
I I feel like my heart is getting ripped out. It's you know,
Mhm.
you know. And
Mhm.
then the only thing that gets me by these days, and
Mhm.
usually, hopefully I could remember this, and I've been able to lately, is remembering the people who are putting
Yeah.
their whole lives helping these animals.
Yeah.
So just a
Yeah.
note for everyone who a lot of
Yeah.
people try to stay away from these videos of dog abuse or
Mhm.
helping rescues because of that. But if you're
Mhm.
feeling called to actually help, there's a spot for you.
Mm.
And sometimes they have paid
Yes.
jobs too, like look into it.
Yes.
You can really help if you
Mhm.
want to. So
1000%.
thank you.
I mean,
Yeah.
really, and see, that's such a good thing to say. It really is. And, I always think that I've seen through my kids, sometimes they feel like, yeah, but I mean, what difference is it going to make if I do a lemonade stand and raise, $50 for the Humane Society? I'm like, sweetie, that makes a big difference. I know it seems insignificant, but just the smallest acts of kindness, that's what adds up to make the huge change, and um, I think if I can teach my kids that, they put for their service project, bins around school for paper towels
Oh
and
my
things that
gosh.
the dog rescues need that you wouldn't even think about, um, and the little bit that they collect, you take it over. And I think to physically see that they're collecting it and taking it is hopefully showing them that did that one dog right there, that helped that dog, and you helped that dog. You maybe didn't help every dog here, but you helped that life, and that dog is going to have a great life, and you had a part in that. And
Mm,
it's just paying it forward because, like you said, I mean, they did it for Riley, and that's how I found Riley. And if I can facilitate any dog human bond in the future, I will make that my life's mission, my life's work, my life's passion, because for both the human and the animal, it will be absolutely, literally life changing.
yes. Yes.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
a bonus is doing things like your beautiful son is doing. It
Hmm.
builds character, builds integrity, and kindness is contagious. Everyone's seeing
Hmm.
him, whether they're telling him or not, they're learning from
Hmm.
him. And
Hmm.
then that will help another kid learn to help animals. It's all
Hmm.
just going around, going around, going
Yeah.
around. So, and that's just a
Yeah.
bonus.
It's
So,
just the bonus. It's just
smart
the
boy.
bonus. Yeah, he's a
Oh,
cutie. He's a
is this the
cutie.
one with anxiety?
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
This is my youngest, and
Well,
he's
most
11 now, so
okay. Great age.
Mhm.
what was I gonna say? Oh, so,
The youngest.
uh, yeah, kids who have big hearts. I think
Mhm.
that's where his anxiety is coming from. He's just
Mhm.
feeling all the things.
Yeah.
So, I think
Yeah.
anxiety will be his guide, and he's gonna find the
Yes.
perfect purpose for himself if he hasn't
Yeah.
already. So,
Exactly. And I'm realizing more and more it's my job to teach him how to navigate this world being so empathetic and highly
yes.
sensitive. And, these are things I'm learning about as well. And I think I have a lot of that is he's a much kinder person than I am. I think that
Oh
it
man.
helps me too, just realizing, because I've never known this stuff before. And he's teaching me so much through this. Um, and I think you're right. I mean, I think we can make it an amazing thing if we give him the tools to use when he needs them. Because
100%.
boys can be tough. These little boys can be tough, man. They can, they're rough and tumble. And my son loves sports and he's in it, but then he's out. He
Yeah,
is just
yeah, yeah.
out. We have a joke. He never, ever, ever spends a night out at people's houses, and he'll say, I think I'm going to do it. And so he'll go to his friend's house and, 11 o'clock, he'll go to the mom and say, Hey, Stephanie, can you call my mom? I think I just want to go home. For so long, all the moms were kind of offended. Like, did he not have fun here? Did I upset him? I'm like, nope, it wasn't you. He just likes to be home with his family, with his dogs, in his bed. He just likes to be with his family. That's it. They're like,
Good for
okay, we're
him
just
for
making
listen.
sure,
Yeah.
yeah.
Good for him. He knows
So
what he wants.
he
It's
does.
great.
I was
Yeah, and
proud
he
that
asked for it.
he asked for it. He asked
Yeah.
for it. So he is not afraid to be his own person. And yeah, we just want to, foster that and let that be the norm for him going forward. And, you never want to see these kids. It's so hard to watch them grow up and watch these, hard lessons that life serves us come at them. You see this loss of innocence and you see people being unkind and, what they realize that when you grow up, it's not a fairy tale. It's not this Disney princess ending. It's hard. Life is hard. And so you see them realize this in stages as they grow. And as your parent, it's just so hard to see. It's so hard to
Mm.
watch. But when they can realize it, learn it, know it, grow through it, and sort of then know, like, okay, I got through that. All right. And then, you're a little bit more resilient for the next and the next. And, um, hopefully we can get through it without scars. We can just keep going and not having so much scar tissue built up that they'll have to work through later. That's my goal as a parent, to keep the scar tissue at a minimum.
I like that.
Mhm.
And yeah, learning, I like to just think of all of this as, learning as you
Mhm.
grow, learning as you
Mhm.
go. And that's all you can do,
Mhm.
because yeah,
Yeah.
things are going to come up. You can learn through it
Mhm.
and you'll be stronger because of it. And then
Yeah.
it just continues on and on and on.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
And doesn't mean we're doing it perfectly. We are all
oh,
messing up all the time. And it's
yeah.
just more of that, you know, being okay with the misses.
Yep. And yeah, perfectionism is not the
Mhm.
answer to any of
No.
this.
No.
No, 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 no.
Dirty
No, no, no,
word.
no. It's a
Yeah.
disease and most of us
It
have it.
is. It's so true. I worry
Yeah.
about that with my daughter. She's my firstborn, typical firstborn child, rule follower, just and I tell her all the time, like, it's okay to mess up. You do not have to. And she's like, I know, but I'm like, no, do you really know? Like, and I worry about, on the flip side, I worry about that with her. And I think that was a lot of what I recognized from myself when I was younger. And, you know, I
Ah,
I
yeah.
just want to try to help her see that so that she can at least recognize it and um, start some positive self talk around it.
Yes, totally.
Mhm.
Wow, you were on
Yeah.
top of it. You were on top of it.
Well, I mean,
Not in a perfectionist
it
type of way.
sounds way better than it actually looks in person. I mean, if you, if
You're
you saw
hilarious.
this dog under my desk and like my lab was pawing at the door a minute ago, and it's a it's a
Well,
circus
that's
we
what
put
happens when you
together.
have a crazy, big, beautiful life. Things look
That's
messy.
true.
And
That
then
is
the
true.
key is to just stay centered and balanced through all of
Yes.
it. you know? So you're doing
Yes.
great. You're
Yes.
doing freaking awesome. I
Well,
truly
thank
mean that.
you. Thank
Oh,
you.
thank you so much. You're so beautiful inside and out,
Thank
for
you.
real.
You are
And
too.
thank you so much. To all
Mm,
our guests, all of our listeners, Caroline and I are here to remind you that you have
yeah.
everything inside of you to be better, to feel better, and to create the life that you deserve. We will see you next week. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for listening. Love ya. And I'll add all the links we discussed today in the show notes. And I'll also put a couple local rescues in my area and in Caroline's area if you feel called to help in any way. All right. Well, we'll see you next week. Thank you so much.